What if everything we experience is just a game waiting for you to pick up a controller and play? And like any good game, it's filled with ups and downs and all arounds, and yes, it can feel overwhelming to even the most expert of players. That's why this podcast exists. It features players like us, players who, whether they liked it or not, rose to the occasion and did their part to change history for the better. They made it possible for players like us to reimagine a new world. They changed the game and get to speak their level up into a microphone as precious as gold. Welcome to the Golden Mike Podcast with your boy, Marc Cordon. All right, what is shaking? Golden Mike Podcast with your boy, Marc Cordon. Now, for those of you who have been listening to this show for the past 3 years, you know what the show's about. It's a bad show. We put out bad content. In fact, Eli, I don't even know why we're still doing what we're doing, but I think we do what we do to have days like this. Because today we're going to be talking about a lot of fun stuff, a lot of stuff that is wholesome, and just stuff that is going to tickle your ear. So my guest today, theater director, producer, former Second City improv teacher turned speaking coach with contagious fucking energy and a passion for storytelling. I dropped it just in the intro. Meridith Grundei, what's shaking with you, sister?
Oh my goodness, I'm so happy to be here with you, Mark, and to talk. And I love that you made it 30 seconds without dropping the F-bomb. At 31 seconds, you're like, nope, that was too long.
Boom.
Boom.
Boom. And we're going to be talking about so many things, including this incredible accelerator program for speakers that's coming up. But before we get to that,
yeah,
I need to know.
Mm-hmm.
I need to know about little Meridith, who grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and what life was like before becoming a theater director or a coach or being on Second City. Like, what was that like? Like, what were you like? What were your dreams even?
Oh my goodness. You're starting at that. You're doing that. You're doing this. We're going there. We're going there, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we have to.
I know.
In storytelling and improv,
I know.
I got to do the callback at the end.
I know.
That'll make me seem smart.
Oh my God. So yeah, I was born in Phoenix. I was actually induced so that my parents could use my birth as a tax write-off. So that's how I came into the world. Let's just start there. So the story goes that the doctor who was going to deliver me was bald. That was a specific detail that I needed to know. And he wanted to go skiing. And also, my parents didn't have enough money to pay for my birth. So win-win, let's induce. Doctor can go skiing and we can pay for this birth. So I was born on New Year's Eve, everybody. December 31st at 2:35 p.m. in the afternoon in Phoenix, Arizona. And so then we lived there for the first, I would say, 5 years of my life. And my dad was a serial entrepreneur. He was a Vietnam vet, Marine, married my mom. They met in Italy. They met in Rome.
Oh, wow.
She was a flight attendant. He was stationed at the embassy there and fell in love via letters. They wrote for 6 months, had one date, got engaged, got married in Denver, Colorado, moved to Phoenix. I still am unclear why they moved to Phoenix. I think it was family.
Okay.
And my dad had a variety of jobs, as you do when you get out of the Marines. You become a cop.
Okay.
So he was a cop, and then he and my mom was staying at home with us. And I think she sold coffee door to door or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then he wanted to do a carpet cleaning business. He had this friend who's like, let's go start a carpet cleaning business. So then he took the whole family to New Orleans to start this carpet cleaning business, where I was there for 6 months. And I think my mom was not happy about the whole thing.
Wait, how old were you here?
I was probably like 4 or 5. I very little memories of being in New Orleans, except that I remember we had a cat named Frisco and we think it was eaten by an alligator. Like, that's my memory of New Orleans. And then this is a really beautiful story so far. I was induced and then my cat was eaten.
what I like is that I ask for your backstory, and you give me the backstory of the backstory.
Well, I mean, if you're going to know me, you need to know those details.
And before this, there was this thing called the Big Bang.
There's a Big Bang. Who knows how we got here? It's debatable. Exactly. It's debatable if you haven't figured that out yet. Yeah, anyway, we moved to Colorado when I was about 6 or 7. I think I was 6. And I grew up in Fort Collins, Colorado, predominantly.
Okay.
And I went to school in Fort Collins. I have a brother. It was the 2 of us. Both my parents worked. My mom was a interior designer. My dad at that time he went into pharmaceuticals, and he became a stockbroker. I think these stuff about my dad's important because that's where I kind of got my entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
And he was also really outgoing.
Yes, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Like, were you like the outgoing one? Were you the one that like now your friends will, who knew you back then would be like, yup, she was always a public speaker with contagious fucking energy. And I'm like, why does everyone put in fucking between contagious and energy?
I don't know, but it's warranted. It's really warranted. But so I wasn't always outgoing. I was really, really shy in elementary school. I was very insecure in elementary school. And I remember I would hide. And this is, if you go to my LinkedIn, I put it in the about section where you can, I tell a little bit of the story. I was shy. I sat in the back row. I was terrified of sounding stupid. I was terrified of having the wrong answer. At that time, my parents, that was about 5th or 6th grade, my parents put me into dance classes because my best friend at the time, Mona Mehta, was like, I'm taking jazz. You want to take jazz? I said, I want to take jazz. So I went and asked my mom and dad, can I take jazz? They said yes, which was awesome because then I found a creative expression that I didn't know was in me, which was cool. And it was around the age of 13, I was still dancing, and the dance teacher choreographed this piece where she wanted all of us to come up with one line about what we wanted to be when we grow up. My line was, when I grow up, I want to be just like Wonder Woman. And I did a double turn. And when I got really ambitious, I did a triple turn. And then I would land with my fists up like this. And I would say, when I grow up, I want to be like Wonder Woman. And
I absolutely love it.
Yeah. So this woman came up to me afterwards and she said, you should take acting classes. You have a really great presence on stage. And so I did. I started taking acting classes. And I truly believe it was because of acting, it built my confidence. And it wasn't because I wasn't having to raise my hand. No one was calling on me. I had a monologue. I had a script. I had a character. I had somebody else's words to express myself with. It wasn't me. So in a way, it was like a shield, but it was a shield that gave me some direction. Like, here's some qualities to think about and character to think about and words to use that helped me gain some confidence. I don't know if I completely broke free of not feeling insecure, but I kept moving forward. Let's just put it that way. And because when I was in middle school to about high school, things in my family got very turbulent. So the thing that I loved the most, which was dance. In fact, I was just talking about this last night with a dear friend of mine and her husband, was I got bad grades. My dad, so I am a rebel. If you tell me to go meditate, I'll probably go fuck some shit up somewhere. Like, I won't go and that's a horrible example.
I'm gonna think of more things now.
I'm gonna think of more things. I'm gonna think about how you just told me what to do. I just have always had this somewhat rebellious personality. Like, if you're gonna be a vegetarian, I'm eating meat. If you're a meat eater, I'm going to become a vegetarian. Don't you dare tell me what to put in my body. Anyway, so
I love it.
So I essentially, that was really hard because my dad had flashbacks from Vietnam. Yeah. For all of those years, like nothing, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, and he was very verbally abusive and not very. He just wasn't. He wasn't in a good space. Let's just put it that way. Sure. So I did I stopped going to school. I stopped going to classes. I got a 1.2 GPA my junior year of high school. I would smoke clove cigarettes, listen to punk music, but I loved Jesus at the same time. I was a very confused child.
I love Jesus at the same time.
And so my parents were like, well, fine, if you're not going to go to class and if you're going to get crap grades, then we're taking you out of dance. So they took me out of dance for 2 years. And then when I finally went back, because I did get a 4.0 my senior year of high school, I chose to turn it around. And it was also, I was dating at the time the valedictorian, so I had to live up to expectation, I guess. No, I wasn't codependent. And so...
Are your parents Filipino or something? 4.0 valedictorian? You know, I'd come home, like my parents are so Asian, I'd come home and I'm like, Mom and Dad, I've got hepatitis C. And they'd be like, why not hepatitis A?
Oh my God.
Everything had to be A. All A's, all valedictorians, all the time.
All A's, all the time. And if that's going to happen, we're going to take stuff away from you. Because that, you know.
Yeah, completely.
So I went back into dance and all the people I was in dance with got better than me. They got so much better than me.
Hey, now.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing sort of that esteem that was built up with excitement, you're coming back and you realize that kind of train might have be farther ahead than you thought.
Yeah. And I was raised by boomers, right? Where like on one hand, my dad was, I love you boomers. But like on one hand, my dad was having his stuff happening. But on the other hand, I don't feel like I was really taught that failure's okay. I was never taught that was an okay thing, that you learn from failure. Right. So when I went back and I remember auditioning because our high school, which was pretty cool, had a dance company in the high school. And I went back and auditioned and I didn't get in. And I was devastated. And I put all of that failure on my own self-worth, that I must suck, I must not be good. And so the voices in my head were horrible, horrible. And I did audition again. I don't know how, maybe it was my friends. I don't really remember what the pivotal point was there, but I did get back in, but I just never got my confidence back in the way that it was. And so I did take some of that into my adulthood. So then you flash forward, I moved to the Bay Area. Yeah. I did take improv at Bats. That was my first improv class, but I was really confused at the time what improv was even. I mean, I knew what short form improv was and stuff, but like I got into this class, I was like, what are we doing? Like, where's my script? This is scenic. I don't understand. It was like, it was really, so I kind of did this half-assed job. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I did shitty. And then my teacher wanted to hold me back. I was like, nobody holds me back. This is improv. Like, why would you hold me back in level 1? So I didn't go back. I just didn't go back. And that became a pattern of mine where I just didn't go back. Like I would audition for these big theater houses and I wouldn't go back if I didn't get the part. Yeah. It was really bad. So there was one audition I had at ACT, and this is hilarious. This will just give you insight into moving into like the Chicago improv stuff. So I sign up for a class and someone pulls me inside and says, I see that there's dance on your resume. Would you like to audition? Carrie Perloff, who was the artistic director of the time, is directing The Misanthrope. And I don't know who Carrie Perloff is at the time. And I said, sure. So I go and I audition and I prepared my monologue. I go up on my monologue and then I go up on it again. And then I go up on it again. And at that point, I am just standing there in front of Carrie Perloff and the whole artistic team, near fucking tears. And I keep having to turn my back to them and breathe. And they were actually really quite lovely with me. It could have gone like, bye, see you later. But they let me stay and recompose. I never really got through the whole monologue. And then they said, why don't you do the dance for us? So I did the dance, and then they partnered me with someone, and then I got cast. Having gone up on that monologue a gazillion times, I still got cast. And then the whole time, here I am on the ACT stage. Here I am doing something that a lot of people at that time would have died to have done.
Yeah.
And I still couldn't see at all where I was at or what I had achieved, or I was incapable of being present. I just kept saying,
Wow.
but they only cast me because I can dance. They didn't cast me because I can act. That was my narrative. Like walking with my friend Ian to the Cheesecake Factory at break, like crying. They didn't cast me because I can act. That's what I wanted.
That feels very perfectionistic.
Mm-hmm.
And how have you done? I mean, actually, because improv, I don't know if you can go perfectionistic with improv. It's like going with the flow.
It's
right?
going, yeah. And it was really hard for me. So then I left. I
Yeah.
got into a sketch comedy group called Old Man McGinty. It was a bunch of my experimental absurdist theater friends who also loved improv. And that was when I started to have more fun. Like I started to find a sense of play. And then one of the members went to Chicago to study at IO, and I followed him there, and I interned my way through IO, which was formerly Improv Olympic, and learned the Herald and loved the structure of that form, and performed on IO's stage for a couple of years. And then I was teaching in after-school programs, and one of the core faculty members was also teaching in the same after-school program as me, and she really loved how I taught. And so she said, hey, we're starting a youth program at the Second City. Would you come help us develop the curriculum? And so that's how I went from teaching in after school then to teaching at the Second City and second, I can't even talk. The Second City and helped them develop this youth curriculum. And I taught the very first class for kids at the Second City, and it was awesome. And then from there, I started teaching the adult classes, and then I got into like the corporate world, and it was really fun. And then I left and I went to grad school.
Well, you know what I love about your whole story is this idea of someone who is, you know, a bit perfectionistic, self-conscious, maybe not having a lot of confidence in certain areas, and really leaning into things like the arts to help turn that around.
Yeah.
I am not quiet about talking about how I grew up like complete and total mute. And even if I have my druthers now, I love being in this little office in this little world and playing, and you know, I'm just an introvert, big time introvert, you know. And I know like when I was in high school, I was so insecure that I wore my hair like this so no one would see my face, right? Because I didn't want to deal with bullying. But I remember thinking to myself, like, I've really stayed home and done my work during high school. What's something that I can do that would scare the shit out of me? And it was getting on a stage. And I was cast for Pappy Yoakum in Lil Abner.
I love it.
And not only did it mean that I had to act, but I also had to sing too. And there was something about, you know, I just like everything else, like I wanted to memorize it, and I tried to figure out like how do I speak like an old man would speak. How would my body go? And I just remember getting on stage, and like the first line that I dropped, like I didn't know what that feeling was when the audience would react to it, and you'd have to take a breath and just be like letting the audience like go through that. And I remember saying like, well, I'm not fully like I'm not fully confident this is really something that helps me realize how alive I can be and how much fun I can have and how much I can do if I just keep working at something, you know. And I don't think it's any surprise for me now that, you know, years later, I'm a positive psychology coach and working with creatives, you know. And it's just hilarious just how those little things, like right in the last moment, when you start connecting the dots, you're like, wow, I really did have sort of a story arc going on, you know. And so now for you, we're at Second City, right? In your story. And you've been pulled up to the adult class. Like, talk to me about what's going on with you then.
Well, so it's funny because I'm still pulling some of that insecurity with me. Like, I'm teaching adult classes. I love teaching it. I'm thriving at teaching improv. People are noticing me. They're pulling me. Like Brian Posen at the time, who was still there, he was the artistic director of the Chicago Sketch Festival. He pulls me aside and says, "Do you want to be an associate producer for this?" And I said, "Sure, I would help with that." So I'm helping over here. And I notice what starts happening is that I start becoming a creator of things. So I'm helping produce. I'm coming up with ideas for shows. I'm directing people for their shows. I'm coaching groups. I'm performing in groups. Like, I'm kind of all over the place, being this multi-hyphenate, as many artists are. I was doing commercials. I was auditioning for film. It was really quite fun. And here's where the other, like, that perfectionism piece, I think is interesting that you pulled out, because I don't ever think of myself as a perfectionist, but I think if I get really true with myself, like if I hold myself up to a mirror, I think you're probably right. So there was one audition I did. So I wanted to be on stage at Second City. That was one of my things. I was like, I would love to be on Tourco, or I would love to be on stage. And a couple of the main stage actors actually would pull me aside and say, "You need to be on main stage." And I remember I signed up. Are you ready for it? One audition slot, one audition time, and where they pulled us up on stage, and we get with a group of people that we may or may not know. And that particular day, it was rumored that Mike Myers was sitting in the audience. I have no idea if to this day if he was. There was some shadowy figure in the back. And I get on stage and I pretty much do the worst improv I've ever done on the planet. And I wasn't supportive. I was so in my head. I was worried too much about Mike Myers being in the audience. And I never went back. I never auditioned again. And that, I feel, I'm a person who is a firm believer of moving forward and learning from, of course, your experiences and not dwelling in the past. But that's
Totally.
one little regret that I have, is not having gone back and done it again and again. Because there were people on that stage who had auditioned 8 or 9 times before they got on stage.
Was it the rejection?
It was a combination of embarrassment and rejection.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because I put myself, I was like, well, I'm teaching here. There's an expectation for me to be good. I got to be really fucking good.
Oh God.
I got to be funny, you know?
Yeah.
Instead of just showing up.
So what does that mean for you to, like, go back to Second City the next day or week? Are you carrying that shame back with you?
Oh yeah.
Guilt?
Yes. I would shy away. I couldn't confidently go up to the powers to be and be like, "Hey, what's up?" You know, I can today, whatever. I'm like, I don't care. Like, you have to love me or you don't. But back then I was 25?
Yeah.
25, 26 years old. Mm-hmm.
I was on a show a couple weeks ago, and someone had asked me, like, what are some of the greatest things that have happened to you? And actually, one of the greatest things that happened to me was I made it to the final round of an improv troupe. And like, performance wise, I was a performance monkey who read sheet music. I I could act if you gave me a script,
Mm-hmm.
but to put myself in a place where it's like a trust fall, actually, like where it's like, we gotcha,
Mm-hmm.
yes, and all this good stuff, the Herald, Truth and Comedy, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And that feeling of, this is just me talking, of not being enough. Like, I totally get it. I actually was in a PhD program. I made it through to the final tests, and I was just writing my dissertation, and I didn't come back. Like, I didn't tell them I'm not coming back. I just walked. And
Wow.
part of it was like this walk of shame, being like, here I was, I just failed all those tests and stuff like that. And rather than rise to the occasion, I just walked. I didn't want to deal with it. And
So
I realized,
go ahead. No, I'm sorry. I interrupted you. Go ahead. What did you realize?
I can't, look at you. Look at you. I said you have permission to take over the show, and you have. I think I've realized a couple things. Number one is moving more towards a growth mindset.
Yeah.
Rather than having a fixed mindset. If I don't get this, then the world falls down.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I didn't come back, the world didn't fall down.
Mm-hmm.
I think the power of communication.
Oh.
To leave and not to say anything about it. Or when my first book came out, I wrote them this long paragraph inside the book thanking them, but like, I couldn't tell. Like, I still had this. I still do. I still have the shame and the guilt of walking away and not being good enough for the program. And I think there was just a lot of things that I took from that. Probably the biggest thing, though, Meridith, was the idea of hiding, and I didn't know how much, like, I was hiding. Like, I did go through a really bad health scare while I was there in that program, and I was like, hey, I can't do my homework today. I can't write my literature review. I'm sick, and I have a doctor's note saying that it's serious, right? And then, like, I could treat it, but like, anytime it got hard, I'd be like, oh, I think the symptoms are coming up again. Rather than going up to them and getting out of hiding and saying, look, I'm really stressed out. I'm not, my learning style does not work well with what you guys want from me. What can I do to show up fully? And what can I do to help you understand sort of my learning style? And that took a lot of practice. That took a lot of, like, rock bottoms for me to be able to ask what it is that I want. Because I think, especially you and I doing business, a lot of people, I'll be talking to someone and they'll be like, so what are you asking?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, there I was hiding behind just months of rapport building when they might have seen me as a good coach, and I didn't ask,
Yeah.
So yeah. Did any yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, your show's better than mine.
No, that's debatable.
Did any of that, like, resonate with you in terms of, like, whether it be a certain amount of hiding or sort of that shame? Or, I mean, I know that it was hard to walk away, but, like, there's so many things that. How about this?
Yeah.
What did you learn from what was the universe teaching you in that moment when you had to come back the next day?
I feel that the universe taught me the lesson a long time after that moment. I did hide, of course.
Okay.
That's what I did, was I hid. And
Okay.
what I would love to be able to take my full adult self now and go back in time and look at that 25, 26-year-old and say, pull your head out of your butt. But I do feel, though, that what I failed to recognize was, first of all, I made it way too much about me, just way too much about me. And then the other thing I failed to recognize were the people around me that truly believed in me, that thought I was amazing and talented, and they enjoyed being on stage with me and they wanted to see me succeed.
Yep.
I had a really hard time accepting that or hearing it for some reason. And it's so funny because I was watching a show the other day and I was like, oh my gosh, that's Neil Flynn, who was, he was at IO and left IO. And I think he's, several years older than me, but he came back and he saw a show and I was in this performance piece called Thriller Theater 5. And it was a mashup, and the Jason Shin, who has since passed, was one of my improv teachers, and he cast me in this for a couple of years in a row. And it was a mashup of why am I having a brain fart right now? Scooby-Doo and holy shit, I am having a brain fart on your show.
It's all good because Mike Myers is sitting on the couch.
Fonzie. What's that show?
Happy Days.
Happy Days. Good Lord. Okay, so it was a mashup of Scooby-Doo and Happy Days. And I played Joni Cunningham. Okay, so who I think had a lesbian affair with Thelma. I don't remember in the show. And then at the end we did like Thriller Theater.
Incredible.
We did the Thriller dance. And anyway, Neil came up to me afterwards and he's like, You're really fun to watch on stage. I hope you continue this. I hope that I see you on TV one day. And I was like, yeah, great, thanks. Never allowed that to really be heard. I didn't allow it to be heard. I just wanted to be in my own little self-doubt bubble.
That's really interesting because I want to kick you in the butt for
Thank you
for doing that. But how many times have all of us done that?
Yep.
We're given a nugget of opportunity, which is amazing. We kind of know it's amazing. I know for me, I'm like, oh, if I can get one now, then maybe I'll get one again in the future, and I can still be treading water like I am right now. It's really interesting that you talk about that, and then perfection, and then hiding. But you also talk about leaps of faith. Talk about that. I'm not sure I'm sure you use that with your clients, but bring this around now. Here is someone who was kind of doing hiding, but now talking about taking leaps of faith.
Yeah. So the other thing that I loved improv, I loved sketch comedy, but I also, from my dance background, I was introduced in San Francisco to these other theater forms. So the viewpoints for one, biomechanics, Grotowski work, all of these really fun movement-based experimental art forms. And then when I moved to Chicago, I was also in a company called Sprung where we did physical storytelling using Lecoq work. And so I was really also had my foot in this other world. And so I took a leap of faith and went to this graduate program that was brand new. I was the second class. And I got accepted, and it was all these practitioners who were in the theater world at the ETW at NYU who came to Boulder, Colorado. It was a Buddhist-inspired school called Naropa. At the time, I was really excited about the idea of meditating. I do actually like meditating. So we would meditate at the beginning of the day, and then we would do these practices that I was really excited about, which was the viewpoints and Suzuki work. It was like rigor. And I loved that work. And it was also improvisational forms. So I got really excited about what if you took short form improv, long form improv in the way that we see it as like comedy, right? But I always like to take the word comedy out because I don't want anyone to ever feel that they need to be funny. Funny comes naturally when you come from an honest place, truth and comedy, since you've mentioned that book. And then there's these physical theater forms that are also improvisational. What would it look like if you merge those two together and use that to teach other people to become more embodied and improvisational, to help people in a creative way generate their own work? So I got really excited about that. That program happened for 2 years. I did start to gain my confidence back. The older I got, the more I started to realize there was a lot of head trash happening. I had a really wonderful community of people. I got myself on lots of stages in Colorado, and I found myself producing a lot. I had ideas, and I would go to the Denver. I had one idea. I went on this trip to Mexico. I saw micro theater. I went to the Denver Center. They had this great program called Off Center, and I pitched it to them. And they ended up producing it for me, and I got to direct it and cast like 26 actors in this project. And we involved 243 playwrights that were local, and it became, now there's an anthology of it. It's like I got my confidence back, and I was able then to like go create all this awesome stuff. And then simultaneously working with business professionals, because I've always been super curious about what people do for work. I think it's really cool. I think it's cool. I don't care if you're an accountant or if you're in finance or if you're in tech or if you're in medical. Like you were drawn to that. And if you are living your life's purpose, that's even cooler. And tell me more about that, because that's so not my world. And so I really love coaching people because I get to learn something new every time I have a new client.
Right. I feel very similar.
Yeah.
So what brought you to coaching speakers?
Well, from Second City, I started coaching, not coaching, but facilitating workshops, improv workshops to corporate teams. So I would work with IT groups and other teams on using improv as a tool to build trust and heightened communication practices.
Do you feel that's something that businesses picked up on really easily?
No.
Yeah.
No. The thing that was really sad for me, which I would get often hired, there was one exec coach that would hire me. And at the time, it was like, try to keep a lot of your artistic background out of your, when we do an intro, you can say Second City, but, just try to keep it vanilla. And then I would come in and do these exercises because they had just done like a Myers-Briggs or a Berkman assessment. And then I would come in and I'd try to highlight, look at these different personality types and here's more of like an experiential way of looking at those personality types and how we can better communicate with each other. But I was like a one and done deal. And so I always felt sad that I couldn't go back to those groups to see if they were actually implementing any of the things that they learned. Yeah. And also I tried to do the improv stuff on my own, and I was successful on a few occasions. Some people got it, but it was really hard to communicate what improv was and the value of it to people for the longest time. And I feel like more people know the value of it now than ever before. But that was hard to communicate.
You can tell because you go to Amazon now, you type in improv, and it's improv with businesses, improv, to get through and stuff like that. Yeah. What makes it fascinating is, like, just because you read Truth and Comedy doesn't mean that you fully understand that, right? And
we love you, Sharna, but no.
Right. And it's, to me, it would be the same thing. Like, someone gets a book and then they'll be like, yo, these are the top 3 things that ChatGPT wanted to talk about with the book. And it's not the same. It's not the same as someone who's done the work and is working with a team, and I didn't know whether or not a lot of folks would be receptive to doing improv with their colleagues, but
good. Go ahead.
Oh, look at that. We're getting our body language in sync now.
Did you see that?
What I was going to say. Like, we know when to stop. We can totally do our 2-person show now.
Oh, I can't wait till we meet in person someday.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun.
It's going to be so much fun. I think we're going to revolutionize public speaking as it is.
We're going to do something with public speaking. And I don't even freaking remember what we were supposed to talk about then.
I don't know either. Something messy.
Everything's
messy. Everything.
Well, and I think this is the thing with. I think this is the thing that I was going to get to. Rigid, structured, like strategic plans just don't fucking work. And this is Mark saying it, like if you had a 5-year strategic plan in 2018, by 2020, you were all hands on deck trying to figure out how to make your business run. Mm-hmm. And so, I'll send you a couple of these if you ever want to use these with your clients. Yeah. There is a newer school called complex adaptive systems theory. It sounds like it sounds like a big thing, and it is, but what they're saying is, let's create, rather than this person does this person does this in 2000, whatever, we have this KPI. There's a place for that. And what I love about CAS, complex adaptive system theory, is that it says, look, this is what the company needs to work. We're hiring you because you're talented, and we want you to get on the stage that we're building for you and play jazz.
Yeah.
And to me, when I think about that, I'm like, yo, that is total improv being pulled in to things that wouldn't maybe embrace improv a couple of years ago. Like, again, strategic planning does not take into account the changing environment.
No.
And I think that, to me, improv does take that into account,
Oh, I love that. I want to know more about that for sure. Because you're just making me think. I always say that owning a business is one big experiment. Like, if you've got to give some things time to see if it lands or not, it doesn't land, right? So I have a rule that if I change my marketing, I leave it for 3 months. At least.
Look at you.
I
love it.
Because then it's like, okay, did I get any, are people confused about what I do still? And then I'll ask a few people and they'll be like, yeah, I don't know what you do. Well, I'm a public speaking coach. It was on whatever. But then I'll go and adapt it and then let that sit for a few months. But it's not just the marketing stuff. It's everything. You have to be adaptable. I mean, a lot of us have moving parts.
And I love the fact that you're bringing up, like, it doesn't, like, owning your business, running your business does not have to be completely 100% right out of the gate. It's iterative. You learn, you build systems, you build automations. But I think a lot of what I'm hearing from you is this art of showing up.
Showing up, yeah.
To maybe receive something, in acting, in an audition, getting a part, not getting it. What does it look like to show up the next day, right? What does it look like to show up in a work environment that is fast-paced and changing and evolving and wants you to evolve with it, but then they also want to keep you stuck in some place? It's just so much wild stuff. What are you smiling about?
Well, I just was thinking about, like, it is about showing up. And I feel that the one thing I wish I had known when I was younger is showing up with intention.
Talk about that.
So we can show up every day, and sometimes we are on automatic and we just show up, we go to work, we do our thing, or we go to a networking event, or we sit at the table with the family for dinner. But oftentimes we're not leading with intentionality. So we are showing up expecting a different result, but we're not actually putting intentions towards what the result is that we want for the end of the day. It's just like our clients. We ask them, what's your objective? Like, you're not just going to get up and start talking without an objective. What do you want your audience to feel? Or how do you want, what do you, right? What's the end in mind, if you will? So I feel that if I could go back in time, I now do this moving forward, is whenever I want to know what the intention is. What is my intention for the day? If I go to this networking event, what is my intention?
I love that. Because when you are in that intention, then you can take inspired action.
Yes.
Not just go and be like, yo, I showed up, y'all, it didn't work. Well, maybe it's right. Yeah. Maybe it's because that inspired action wasn't there. Action's one thing, inspired action is another. I also like the way that you talk about, like, when you're taking action, or when you're in inaction, the litany of things that can be excuses to not take action.
Right.
I know you talk about things like kids, yard, responsibility. Like, we all might turn those into excuses to not move forward or accomplish our dreams. What's your take on that take on you?
Well, the first thing that
tell me about the quote that I just told you about.
No. Well, it's so funny. I'm a very image-oriented person, and so sometimes when people start talking, images will pop into my head of, like, things that have happened in the past. And I just had an image of my husband and I sitting on a couch. And, like, my daughter's not happy. She's, like, in the background having a tantrum over something. And then my husband and I will make eye contact and look at each other and smile and say, we chose this. Right?
Absolutely love it.
So
Incredible.
that's how I always look at those things now. Is like, I cannot bitch about the things in my life because I chose all of them. And I understand that there are marginalized communities who might be,
Yep.
that would like maybe hear me and say, F you. And I get that. And I want to just acknowledge that, because there are some circumstances where actually people have been put in places. But for me, in this very privileged place that I happen to be in, I have choice. I have choice. And so that's all I have to say about that.
Well,
And scene.
I'm like, I can't transition that now. Like, I can't do
What do you
anything.
think, Mark?
I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
We've been talking, or a couple times it's come up, like things bigger than ourselves,
Yeah.
or turning inward. Your conception of spirituality is that it's not an external thing. It's not something bigger than ourselves. It's an internal thing. Talk more about that.
I feel that when I can really get clear with who I am, that and the words that I'm saying to myself, and being in touch with my own nervous system, that I feel a heightened sense of spirituality, versus if I'm looking outside of myself to find the answers. That doesn't seem for me to work.
That makes total sense. As you talked about the fact that you didn't get the part, which feels very much an external thing, right?
Yeah.
You don't get part, and so like everything that you build is around that idea of you didn't get that part.
Yeah.
Or you didn't receive this thing, this opportunity in a way that you, in a way that you maybe should have in retrospect, right? So, okay, let's put this all together, right? When you're working with your client, right, and they're about to take the stage, or even in terms of the process, what are some of these little leaps of faith, these responsibilities that are not excuses, a growth mindset? Like, how do you work with somebody who's about to tell the story of their life on a stage? It's a big one, I know.
That's a really big one. So let me reflect back. Like,
What are we doing?
so, okay. The first
happening
thing that so tell me if I'm not answering your question. I think I'm answering your question. I believe I'm answering your question. Is, well, the first thing is, if anyone's going to tell their story and really tell their story with the specifics and the details, and they're allowing themselves to go to that place, that's a huge leap of faith. So I, first of all, just commend people for taking a step forward and saying that they want to tell their story. Then my second question is, are you ready to tell this story? Like, do you feel like those wounds are not still incredibly exposed to where...
Huge.
Right?
Yep.
Because when my father passed away in 2011, that's a very long story for another podcast, another time, but we discovered things about him after his death, and it took 5 years for me to be able to tell that story. And so what I did was I would tell the story, parts of the story, to my community or my friends that I trusted. And then I would allow myself to feel the feels. What did I notice? And one of my favorite quotes is "Notice what you notice," which is an Allen Ginsberg quote. Just notice what you notice. Okay, well, I'm feeling a little heavy in my chest, or that felt really uncomfortable, or I'm feeling guilty for sharing that story, or I'm feeling shame from telling that story. Whatever it is, just noticing that and then allowing yourself that time and space before you tell it again. And it might take you 10 years to tell that story. I mean, there's playwrights that take 10 years to write a play. It's okay. We're all works in progress.
Right.
But that when you do get to that place where you want to share it with a large audience, you're ready. You've done the work to get to that place. Because if you don't do the work to get to that place, it can be harmful.
Yeah.
It can be re-traumatizing for you, which is not to say you're not allowed to feel the feels. You can show us the emotion on the stage. That's okay. Yeah. It's just making sure that wound is not open.
Yeah, it makes total sense, because then it's thrown back to the audience who
yes.
Are like, I don't know what to say or do with someone who hasn't worked through this kind of stuff yet. In my opinion, that's one of the worst things you can do.
I would. You have to take care of your audience.
Totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're on the ride with you, mm-hmm. right? Have you ever done that? Have you ever gone on stage and you hadn't processed something?
Well, I still perform. Yes, multiple times. I have. I perform with this group called Playback Theater West, and it's improvisational theater, and people get up on stage. Audience members will come up on stage, tell their story, and then we play back their story. And
oh my
yeah.
gosh. Talk about trust.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've done that a couple times with my own story. And I've also, I did do a story slam in Boulder several years ago. I told my dad's story, and they did videotape it. And I just said, I'll tell this story to this audience of 50 people, but please don't put the videotape online. And they respected that. And then I just wrote a one-woman show about it. So now I'm at that point where I can vulnerably tell this story without feeling the hard feels.
I can't wait to have you back talking about that, because that is massive, that project. I learned a lot of things the hard way in terms of not sharing, not being prepared, or not having processed the trauma that I'd just gone through, you know. And so when Dad died a couple of years ago, I came back to Florida to, help with that. He wasn't he had Alzheimer's, and I was there to help with things. And so there's a lot of like pre-grief that's going on when someone is slipping, right? Yeah. But then when it actually happened, like it was almost automated that I was like, I'm going to go do podcast. I need normalcy here. I'm going to continue to send my email blasts out to my folks. And I just remember getting a lot of messages back saying like, you're not all right, dude. Yeah. Or who is your sort of support network, and when big things like that happen, I guess the best you can do is have a coach. Yeah. Who can reflect that back. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I think that's beautiful. Yep.
Suck it, Harold.
Suck it, Harold. Oh my goodness.
I still can't arc it back to the beginning yet. I haven't been able to do the callback.
You can do the call. Okay, what is the callback? The callback is, and that is why you were induced. I don't know. That wasn't a good callback either. Was that a good callback? And now, yes.
And that is why you were induced. Eli, clean this whole thing up here. Please, Eli. Drop another 50 for you, Eli. Clean it up. So I do want to play with you. Yeah. For a bit. Okay. And I think we can have fun, because this is Eli's game. And he's looking. This looks like I'm in a house. I'm actually in a multi-million-dollar set right now, and Eli's in the producer's box, telling me what to do. And Eli wants to play the game.
Do it.
Let's do it.
Do it, Eli.
Okay. I just want to let you know, no one's ever passed this game.
Shit. Yeah, I'm very nervous.
Exactly. So a lot of things that we talked about early on, you actually did talk about embodiment.
Mm-hmm.
So Eli wants to ask you questions about embodiment.
Okay.
And all you have to do is fill in the blank or fill it in with a paragraph, however you see fit. And Eli will judge whether it's right or wrong.
Thank you, Eli. I can't even see your face.
Well, I'll describe it to you. Eli is standing like this, arms crossed right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's got aviator glasses on, and he's got a cigarette that's like burning into the. It's burning into his lips. So like,
you know what I want to ask Eli is like, what are you afraid to tell me right now, Eli? Closing yourself off like that, your arms across your chest.
He's not doing anything. He's just, and you know what's weird? He's just looking forward the whole time. Like, what is he looking at? What are you looking at, Eli? You're weird, Eli. Okay, so here we go. Eli's first question is this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Joy smells like.
Joy smells like fall.
Eli just turned his calendar, like he's got one of those like paper calendars. He just flipped it to October, and he's looking through the window right now, and he's giving me a thumbs up. And then now he's smoking the rest of his cigarette, but he's doing a thumbs up. Congratulations! You are 1 for 1 point. My goodness, Eli is rocked. Eli is rocked. Okay, so the second question is this. Joy tastes like.
Joy tastes like. Oh, a lot of things are popping into my head right now. That's unfair. Okay, I'm just going to go with first thought, best thought here on this one. A vanilla ice cream cone in the summertime.
So Eli just changed his calendar to May. He's got a vanilla cone in his hand, and he's lifting his aviator glasses to show a single tear running down his face. 2 for 2, Meredith.
Yes.
Let's go to question number. This is, I don't think we've ever gotten this far before. Most guests like have run out of the studio. Why do you stay here? Joy smells like.
Joy smells like sweat after sex.
Eli is having sex right now. He's finished, and he's wiping his brow. How could you not? 3 for 3. Holy shit.
Boom.
And I have never seen this side of you, Eli. Literally, I've never seen that side of him. No tan lines whatsoever, people, either. He is just, yeah. Let's go to the next one. Joy looks like.
Joy looks like Kate Blanchett.
Eli's coming up to the window with a picture of Kate Blanchett. He's shaking his head up and down, but he's ripping it in half.
No,
he's ripping the
Eli.
He's both of his feet are smashing on it. He's double donkey kicking it.
What did Kate Blanchett ever do to you?
He said minus 100 for asking questions. You are minus 96. I told you this game is brutal. I warned you. This game is brutal.
I shouldn't have been so specific.
All right, I don't know what you're gonna do to get out of this one, but we got We got one question left.
Okay.
And that question is, joy feels like.
Joy feels like sitting in the sun with a tank top on.
Have no idea how he's doing this, but the roof is opening up. Eli is taking off his work overalls, and he's lying on the ground in his tank top with the sun above. 100 points.
Boom.
Meridith, you've knocked this one out. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Actually, you got so many points that you're going to go to the bonus round.
Oh, okay.
You're going to come into the gauntlet now.
Oh, my
Cordon.
goodness. Me and my squeaky chair. Here we go.
All right. So the company name is the Joy Revolution, which can stand for two things or more. The first being sort of the revolution of the heart. That's when something happens or you turn inward and you literally feel your heart welling up and even overflowing. That's one kind of joy revolution. Another joy revolution is using joy as this like contagious leadership tool to change history for the better. It's an external tool, right? So you've gone through a lot. You've done a lot. You made it through the gauntlet. I'm going to ask you what your joy revolution is, Meridith. So what is your joy revolution?
My joy revolution is to be a much better listener to the stories that I may not agree with, and I'm holding a hope that more stories can be told, because I truly feel that through the power of story, we can change the world.
Love it. Love it. Give us a plug one more time for your accelerator program for speakers.
Yeah, I have a 12-week accelerator program that begins May 1st. I'm taking 10 students. It's going to be fun. You're going to learn practical tools. You're going to have a presentation at the end of it that you will deliver to an invite-only audience. And you have access to my Confidently Speaking group coaching program, where we will do improv for speakers. And you also get a one-on-one with me in that 12-week program. And so I hope you'll join me. And I have really had a lot of fun, Mark. Thank you.
As well. You got to come back on. This was so fun. I want to make sure that I have the website correct. I see your social media, but can you give us the website so that we can go there and sign up?
Yeah, it's grundeicoaching.com, and that's spelled GRUN as in Nancy, D as in dog, EI, coaching.com. And that's under programs. You'll find that there, the accelerator program. Yeah, thank you.
It. 10 spots, folks. Only 10 spots.
Only 10. 2 have already been filled, so come on. What are you waiting for?
8 spots. 8 spots. Eli is riding away on motorcycle. He thinks that he has to sign up somewhere, so he's
on his way to my place.
He's on his way. He's on his way. All right, Meridith, thank you so much for coming through. I can't wait to have you on again. On behalf of myself, Meridith, Eli, who God knows where he is right now, for your sake, for my sake, for our sake, for goodness sake, start your revolution. Start it in love, in light, in shadow, and in joy, baby.
Yes.
All right, I hope you enjoyed the Golden Mike podcast. There's more good stuff coming your way, so keep in touch, yeah? And know that you never have to go on this journey alone. So don't forget all the episodes, blogs, and resources at podquest.co. That's podquest.co. So until then, what will you do to change history for the better? Let's go out and play, shall we? Press start to begin. See ya.